So this week, my staff asked me to cover off on one of two topics. The first one is, should I buy or should I build? This topic we actually have covered in the past, so I'm just going to send a link in the notes if you have a question about this one, because this is a very common question. But the second one is how to find off market deals. So we're going to tie this off into basically two sections: the three ways to solicit, and then also how I look at these from somebody that has solicited thousands of people, as well as somebody who's been solicited thousands of times as a self storage owner. So really, there's three ways that you can contact your self-storage facility owners. You can basically phone or text, you can email, and you can do mailers. Pretty simple enough. Now, with self-storage, it's one of the easiest asset classes to solicit because in general, the owners are very heavy owner operator because there's not a lot to manage in typically most cases. And so, whereas multifamily and some of my other asset classes, I have to go through a gatekeeper or property manager. I have to find the entity, then I have to try to find back ways to figure out who owns the entity. You typically don't have to deal with that because, and primarily, the easiest way to get a hold of the owner is to simply just call the number on their self storage website because if they're marketed, they got to have market to potential renters with a phone number somewhere, whether it's on a sign or on a website or on Google or whatnot. Now, this is probably the easiest way to get hold of your owner operator by far is just simply picking up the phone and calling. Now, I want to give you perspective as something that's been solicited thousands of times. Between all my facilities over the last few years, on average, I would say we take a solicitation between 30 and 120 times a month. Typically peak in January for some reason. I think that's because brokers are trying to hit their quota or not. But why that's important is because a lot of the call centers charge anywhere from $5 to $7 a call after hours or whatnot. And then my staff, I would say it's roughly about the same call. So on a monthly basis, I'm paying a few hundred to sometimes even maybe $1,000 just by taking phone calls that people soliciting. So if you're going to do that, avoid the first 5 days of the month because people are often taking payments. Owners are busier then. I personally prefer to call after hours so then you can leave a voicemail explaining more about yourself. Now, if you are trying to get past the gatekeeper, I'll stop you right there. Do not do that. In my company and many others, if you give my personal information for somebody to contact, you will be fired. We value discretion. If I wanted to take the calls myself, I would take them myself. I wouldn't ask you to pass them off to me. In most cases, it's one of two scenarios. Either the staff can pass it on to me via email, which most of the time I never respond back to, or they're simply just instructed to stop sending me a request for this anyways because I just don't flat out want to sell. It's almost always one of those two situations. It's almost always one of those situations for somebody else that has a call center. So flash forward to emails. Emails are my personal favorite because I can add people on drip campaigns. I can go onto somebody's website often to find the email. And then on top of that, if we have some going back and forth with it, it's easy for me to see what was discussed in the past. It's also easier for the owner too as well. So, I've had owners before where they've asked me some advice and then I reply back to the email from a few months ago. And then I'll ask them like, hey, I know you talked about this person about getting a steel roof on, were they helpful for you? And then it's like, hey, I wanted to see if we could grab lunch to discuss selling your facility. So it's an easy segue that way. The other thing about it too as well is that no matter what way you contact them with these two methods, especially if you're contacting via phone, I always ask them, when can I follow up? And also, how do they prefer to be contacted? If you were actually get a hold of me and you ask me, shoot me an email. I'm not going to give you my personal email. I'm going to give you the email so that way then if you're getting too annoying in the future, my staff can basically go ahead and screen you out. Lastly, you have mailers. Mailers, in my opinion, are only effective if the owner basically has an office there that they are there taking calls. So basically actually on site, and also then they maybe hold on to it for a while. But with technologies these days, it's so much easier just to follow up. Plus, I don't have to spend money on every follow up when I do a mailer. In fact, I guess maybe if I have a software that does it, but I can do it much more cheaply, especially if I'm doing it in mass. So these are things to kind of consider going forward when you solicit. Put yourself in the shoes of owners, okay? Everybody wants to buy a self-storage facility right now. Not everybody wants to be solicited. So if you can meet them where they want to be you'll be better off getting an off-market self-storage facility.